Hello everybody, my name is Josh, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the latest revision of RateFinder, version 1.1.0. This is a significant improvement from the last public release, which was 1.0.3. And so that essentially means there's been 7 internal revisions since the last release, and let's talk about what those differences are. So this is the homepage, and what you immediately notice compared to the last version is there's only 2 buttons now. We have the Find My Rates button, which is the same thing where you're starting from scratch and you're trying to identify your rates. And then you have the Load My Profile button. What this does is it now replaces the Refine My Profile rate. So if I go into it, it's going to show you a list of all the profiles that you've done previously, which include your calibration data and your free flight data. And when you load it, it'll load the results page. This results page then has your rate curve, it has your rate table, and then additionally, we have the throttle histogram and the throttle expo and mid values. Because this is so compressed on one side, you're going to see that the rate multiplier and also the global curve shape are down below. However, if I maximized this screen, you would see these sliders on the right hand side. Down below, we have the same buttons. You can still copy the CLI for your beta flight rates or the CLI for your actual rates. You could also export these rates as a JSON file if you were to upload them to a database. And then you could also save your profile at any point in time that'll overwrite the existing version. We have a button here that brings us back to the calibration. So if you wanted to redo your access calibrations, you would click this button. And then obviously you have the refine in free fly. So if I were to take these rates and want to revise them again, all of the calibration data is stored. There's the calibration value, the free fly 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you could take that and you could do another iteration. What's new here is we also have a share with the community button. This essentially publishes it to a library. This library is hosted on wildtypedrones.com, where it will show you all of the information that's in the results tab, except it's now public and visible on a browser, which is great if you wanted to share your rates. When we go into the compare tab looks very much the same. You're still able to compare different sessions and different free fly values. So for instance, this is comparing the current session with the last free fly. If I wanted to compare this to, for example, my prospect profile, and I wanted to see what the last free fly was, we can see how different these look. For instance, let's do one that makes sense. Let's do Tiny Hawk, and we looked at Free Fly 5. We could see what the differences are in the rate values per these sessions, and then we can kind of break down what these tables are doing and how the throttle curves are different. If you go down, this is very much the same. It's just going to be breaking down between A and B, what's higher or lower, and you can see that between roll, pitch, yaw, and then all 3 axes. The diagnostic page had a little bit of a revamp, so if you come down here, this is still very much the same. These are the influences based upon the metadata, and we'll go over that in just a second. But what was added was the throttle mid and expo reasoning, and also a drop down to show you what the throttle recommendations were depending on which throttle choice you chose. So this is the one that I'm running. This is your throttle mid expo based upon your throttle peak. And so it's a histogram of like where your throttle is during the free fly refinement. And with this specific profile, my throttle is pretty much pinned at 100%. And so what happens is it looks at the peak and then it suggests a throttle mid in order to balance those values to make throttle control easier. Now, if you didn't want to enable any of these versions, the histogram peak or the hover median, you could just do no changes. And so what this will do is this will set your throttle mid to 50% and then your expo to 0%, and there wouldn't be any throttle recommendations there, but it'll still show you the histogram of where your throttle stick was for the majority of that free fly refinement flight. Coming down here, we also have throttle band insights. And so what this is illustrating is it's showing you what percentage of the throttle histogram you're currently at, right? So this is indicating 1% of my movements were at the low end, 23% were in the middle, and then 75% were at the high end. And then it gives you a little summary over here to indicate what that free fly refinement did so you can make a better decision on what values you wanted to choose, whether you wanted to go with the histogram peak or the hover medium or simply no changes. This is the same. So these are still the same metrics. These are the baseline of how RateFinder works, the CPR, the CMV, and the MDI. Just to reiterate, the center precision radius is the stick deflection from the center. So low is nice and precise, high is you got a lot of movement. These will vary in a racing environment depending on the aggression of the move. The comfortable max velocity, this is your stick travel. And so the lower the value, the lower the amount of stick travel you're using, the higher the value, the more stick travel you're using. This very much coincides with a high rate and a low rate. And then over here, this is your mid-range distribution index. This is indicating a confidence interval of where your sticks primarily are. So for example, if you're rolling and you're transferring from gate to gate, your roll is pretty much centered because you're gonna be traveling in a straight line. And so what happens is as you go from gate to gate, your roll should be in the center of the stick, but then once you do get to the gate, it'll snap to the high end or the low end of the axis, and that's what the MDI is showing is if you have a low MDI, it's going to be snappy. Versus if you have a high MDI, you're always having a constant change. And what is always constantly changing with a racing drone is the amount of pitch that you're using for elevation changes or speed changes, slowing up or speeding down, for example. Down over here, the correction frequency certainly looks the same. This is what I use religiously whenever I'm trying to tune my rates. It's going to show you what the raw correction frequencies were for the calibration exercises, and then it's going to show you a mean. It's going to give you an aggregate of what all of these 6 exercises are indicating. It'll take that, it'll give you a baseline. That baseline will give you the first free fly calibration rate value. You'll take that, you'll do one free fly pass, and then this free fly frequency is going to be compared to your calibration aggregate. And then depending upon that, it'll show you the difference from calibration. And then post free fly number 1, it'll show you the correction frequencies from run to run, right? So this is indicating a comparison from 2 to 1, from 3 to 2, and then from 4 to 3. I did make some changes on the backend code for this app, and what is showing is that you only need to do one free fly refinement with the calibration baseline, so you can essentially get to your preferred rates faster. For instance, you do the calibration exercises, it gives you a calibration baseline, you do one free fly refinement, the max degrees per second, so the max rate is going to be really low. After you complete that first free fly refinement, change that max degrees per second right here, change that max degrees per second over here, uncheck the axis, raise it up, and that'll raise your roll rate, for instance, to 700. Redo another free fly refinement, and then the rate should start to converge. And the general rule of thumb is continue to do free fly refinements until all of your rates start converging, so they stop moving, essentially. It's like profile stabilization. Looking down here, I also added some more cards to the free flight data section. This is sort of like at a glance about what's happening. So if you look at these specific cards for roll, pitch, and yaw, it's going to show you your correction percentage. So you want this value to go down, right? You want the amount of corrections per axis to go down. And then what's really common is for your median jerk, so the amount of movement that you have on the stick, to go up, because in a race environment, it's very hectic, right? The sticks are always moving in order to have your commanded RC rate. Down here, you can also have a, a sample window into your center precision, your max deflection use. This is very much your CMV, and then also your input aggression, right? This is your correction jerk. Down here, it's going to give you an idea of how well your rates are tuned to your specific calibration baseline. So this is saying yaw is good, roll is all right, and then pitch needs some work. So that's certainly doable, right? It's definitely in relation to how many free fly refinements you do. In this specific example, I only did 4. you can do as many as you want. I've had people do 10, 20, 30, and they just continue to go until it feels good. The more data you have, the better results you're going to get. Now, in the profile section, I did make some changes here as well. I added a filterable search bar, so you can kind of search by date, right? So if you click newest, the latest profiles are going to load. If you click oldest, the oldest profiles are going to load. A to Z is alphabetical, and then the style, right? So whether it's racing, freestyle, or cinematic, I usually just go newest, and then if you wanted to search for a specific profile, you could certainly do that as well. Great. Let's talk about the Find My Rates button. So with Find My Rates, if we were to execute the workflow, let's do it. So we'll say v1. What you're going to notice is these values that we're inputting into the pilot profile, these are metadata, yes, but they also have an influence on the rate recommendations. So the type of grip style that you have will essentially induce slight amount of expo if you're thumbing because it's less precise than pinching and hybrid. Pinching and hybrid are raw recommendations. Thumbing will induce a little bit of expo. Same thing with spring tension. If your value is 7 or above, it'll induce a little bit more expo than normal. As well as if you choose tall stick ends. If you choose tall stick ends, there's more leverage on the stick, so it's going to ask for a little bit more expo. And then last but not least, depending on the racing or the flying style that you select, it is going to choose the right calibration exercises for that specific type. And so we're going to choose racing. After that, it should bring you into the radio detection axis calibration. This one is pretty simple. It hasn't really changed. So you click the start button, you move the roll axis. If you're mode 2, it's on the right-hand side. And then we'll move the pitch axis, so that's going to be up and down. Next, we'll move the yaw axis. What you want to do here is you want to keep the throttle at 0, and then we're going to be moving yaw from left to right. And then after that, we're going to move throttle, so it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And this next one is the trigger, right? So this should be anything that's mapped for the 6 axes. That's pretty important, right? So roll, pitch, yaw are axes 1, 2, 4, and then 5 and 6 are your optional switches. You can have like an arm switch and then a trigger. So my trigger switch is on axis 6, for example. And so what you want to do is you want to click confirm, and then what happens here, and this is pretty confusing, is sometimes this confirm axis mapping just straight doesn't work. I'm thinking about removing it. It's kind of hit or miss, but what you want to look for is the raw axes. As long as these values are trending to your specific target stick movement, you are good to go. So you can see that my trigger is working, my yaw is moving, my throttle is going up and down, I'm rolling right and left, and then I'm pitching up and I'm pitching down. That's all good, but this isn't moving. So as long as the raw axes are moving and these are green, you're solid. So click looks good. Now over here, we're going to be calibrating max stick deflection. And so push it all the way to the right or all the way to the left and just hold it. And then for pitch, same thing. For yaw, same thing. And last but not least, throttle. Great. And then click looks good. After this, you're going to choose your known rate baseline. You can either choose Betaflight defaults or actual rate defaults. These values are going to be set to the Velocitron default values, and so that's what this is. RC rate of 1, super rate of 0.7, and expo 0.1, whereas actual rates are 200, 670, and an expo 0.54. So what you can do is click this and then click continue to calibration, and then this starts the calibration exercises. And so you'll do the sensor precision test, you'll do the hard 180 test, the split S's, the corkscrews, the ladders, and then you'll do the combo. Once that's completed, it'll give you a target CMV and CPR. This is junk data because I didn't actually do the test, right? And then you click view results, and this will bring you to your raw rate recommendations. You'll complete one free fly refinement with these recommendations, and then after that, you'll make a manual adjustment either by inputting a value within the table. For example, if I wanted to increase this to 700, and then you will save your profile, and then you'll refine and free fly. You'll start recording, you'll do 3 laps, you'll click stop and update. You'll want to make sure that the sample count is above 45,000 samples. So that's roughly a 45-second flight. you'll click apply and continue, and then it'll give you some raw rate recommendations based off that, and you'll continue to do that until your profile has stabilized and the rates have converged. When you're done and you're happy, what you can do, for instance, is you can upload specific profiles. So if I were looking at a profile that I wanted to upload, let's say I wanted to look at the hummingbird profile, we'll switch to this, and I wanted to upload this. What we could do is we can scroll down to the share with community button and we can click publish to library. Once we publish to library, what's going to happen is we're going to give it a name. So let's give it a name. Let's say wild type, and we're going to give it a class. We'll choose micro, and we're going to choose the type, which is the hummingbird RS, and we'll choose a prop size, which is 31 millimeters, and last but not least is your camera angle. You're going to notice that the slider goes up and down by 5. If you want to go a specific angle, say 48, use the box. So this is my pilot name, the type of class, the hummingbird RS, prop size of 31 millimeters, and then a camera angle of 48 degrees. We'll take this, and you're going to notice there's a box here on the left-hand side. So if I click this, it's going to prompt you. Do you want to publish these to the community library? If I say OK, it'll publish it. If I didn't want this to be there later, what you can do is you can click this button, you'll click publish, and then it'll go to the library. What you're going to notice here is I can't use WT, so I'm going to have to change my profile. So we'll say wild type test. Go micro, we'll do it again. And we'll say 48. And then we'll click publish. What you should see here is this will turn green and it'll say published. And now what we can do is we can look on the website. So let's take a look. Great. So this is the RateFinder library. And you're going to notice here there are 2 tabs. Let's refresh. The first tab is the library, so this is where you can view individual cards. And then the second tab is the Explorer. The Explorer is a list view. It shows you all of the profiles that have been uploaded to the specific library. And when you click them, what happens is you can now view the rate curve, you can view the throttle curve, the throttle distribution, so the histogram of all your throttle movements, in addition to the stick behavior. So it logs your CPR, your CMV, and then your MDI over here on the bottom part. You could also rate profiles. So if I were to say this profile is kind of mid, I would say 3. If I was to say this profile is pretty great, I would say 5. Or if I was to say this profile is terrible, you click 1. The way that the rating profile works is it needs at least 3 in order to be able to see it within list view over here. So until the profile reaches 3 stars, the rating won't populate. But the intention is to use these ratings in order to give some validity to the rates. So people that look on the website can pick this up, try it in Velocitron, try it in real life, and then kind of view it and be like, okay, this is great. Next, we have the report profile button. So if a bunch of random junk data gets added to the profile, we can flag them, we can spam them. And so use this button to kind of flag me to remove it, and I will. Now, if we're on the Explorer profile, you're going to notice that, yes, we see a lot of data, but if we wanted to get a little bit of more granularity to view what everything is, what we can do is we can click this view profile button. But before I do that, one thing that I do want to show you is this. You can choose the text size. So there's a compact version, which is small text, and then there's a comfortable version, which is bigger text. Additionally, you could also view different types of rates, right? So this is showing actual rates. If I wanted to show beta flight rates, this would change to RC rate, super, and expo, and now you're viewing beta flight rates. Over here, you can also see the different profiles that are loaded based upon the filters that you choose. So if I just wanted to look at whoop rates, you choose whoop. If I wanted to look at 3-inch, you do that, 5-inch, 7-inch, etc. If I wanted to look at different styles, right? If I wanted to look at freestyle, you could do that. Or you could do cinematic, or you could do racing, right? You're going to notice that freestyle and cinematic, they don't change at all. That's because there's no freestyle or cinematic profiles uploaded. yeah, check out the search bar, and I think it's pretty cool. And you can use these quick action bars to go one by one through the different profiles. Now, let's take a look at this really quickly. So if I were to look at this test profile, let's say I wanted to look at it with a little bit more granularity, you would then go to View Profile, and it brings you to the library page. Once you're on the library pages, it gives you a little bit more information on what was done with that specific profile. And so what we're looking at here is this is the type of drone that was used, this is the camera angle, this is the prop profile, and this is how many ratings it has. This is the day that it was also uploaded. At the top, it'll already show you the rate effectiveness, right? So how good are the rates for each specific axis. In addition, it'll show you the full rates, whether it's actual rates or beta flight rates. If you wanted to look at the raw rates value, you can click this button and it'll show you like the decimal values at which they're trying to snap to. Over here, it'll show you the stick behavior. So the stick behavior for CPR, CMV, and MDI, and then also the correction frequency delta from the calibration curve. Down over here, this is the rate curve itself. This is the stick behavior from this table for the CPR, CMV, and MDI. And then over here, it's your throttle response curve, right? So this is set to a linear curve where throttle mid is at 50% and my throttle expo is 0. That's why we have linear curve. And then down over here is your throttle distribution, or the histogram of primarily where the throttle was during that specific flight. The next thing is the correction trend. So this is pretty cool. You can see this is the calibration aggregate. This is your first free fly and then all of the subsequent free flies. What you can do is you can hover above them and it'll show you a percentage. It'll show you a percentage from calibration, and then it'll also show you a percentage from run to run. So notice here for free fly 2, I'm 28% better than my calibration for roll, and then 10% better from free fly 2 based off free fly 1. And then you can kind of look at all that data from run to run. Last but not least is this drop down. So when you click this drop down, it's going to show you free fly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this will populate with all the specific rate values for the free flies that were done, right? So you're going to notice that this is the pretty much the calibration recommendations after you do the calibration exercises, and you can take this and you can compare it to the final rates, and then you'll notice how significant these values differ. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and if you haven't downloaded RateFinder, what you can do is go to Get RateFinder. It'll bring you to wildtypedrones.com/RateFinder. You'll go to download free Windows, click this. It'll link you to the latest GitHub release. All you have to do is scroll down, choose your EXE or your MSI if you're on Windows, click it, run through the Windows installation, and then you should be good to go. But yeah, if you find this interesting, let me know. And yeah, that's RateFinder 1.1.0. If you found that helpful, or if you want to provide some feedback or some bug reports, join Discord. You can find the link on the RateFinder website in the top right here. Click it. It'll open up a URL to join the Discord in itself. And I'm always happy to hear additional feedback, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the chat. Happy flying.